Rearmed Alcryst provides Arcane Darkbow to all of the bow units, and in this video I'll be going over the best builds and the best users of this weapon. Of course, you should be spoiling your favorites, but if you've got multiple favorites and if you are in a dilemma on deciding who to give this weapon to and what kind of build you should be running, then this video is going to be helping you. So Arcane Darkbow is a 14 might arcane weapon giving you -1 special cooldown and +6 attack and speed in the combat, and it does have the HP threshold where you need to be at or above 25%. You can also get debuff neutralization on all of your stats, which means that you're just immune to any kind of debuffs, and then you also get half version of null follow-up, the offensive half, which allows you to bypass the follow-up negation effects of the enemies or verified effects or any kind of effects that can stop your follow-up attacks. And then finally, it has got dive bomb built in, which means that you can make a follow-up attack before the foe can counterattack. So obviously this is very powerful, as we have seen on units like Jamke and Uller before, and it's a pure offensive weapon, so you'll be needing to be fast enough to make the follow-up attack so that you can take advantage of the dive bomb and maybe even trigger Deadeye or Moonbow on your second hit. This, however, is not the only option that bow units have got. We did get an arcane bow a couple of months back on Rearmed Tana, and that did give you -1 special cooldown, +5 to all of your stats and guaranteed follow-up attack, and also damage reduction on foe's first attack, and more attack in the combat depending on the max special cooldown count of the opponent. So comparing these two weapons, as you can see, Arcane Nastrond is just much better for slower units because of having the guaranteed follow-up attack. So a lot of the slow bow units who are not fast enough are going to be preferring to have this weapon. And Arcane Nastrond is a lot more mixed phase because of its damage reduction and how it can work in both phases. On the other hand, we have got Arcane Darkbow, which is strictly for the fast units so that you can take advantage of the dive bomb, and it's a player phase weapon. And dive bomb actually can be really useful along with Brattle Catria, Winter Cordelia, or Haether support, as you can quad attack consecutively, which is just really strong. And if you have a tempo skill, then you can trigger your special even twice in a single round of combat. So those units are going to be best friends of Arcane Darkbow users, and you do get the 30% damage reduction from Arcane Nastrond, which can be helpful on armored far-safe tanks with Armored Beacon or Armored Flow, and it can also stack up with the damage reduction of Remote Skills or Brash Assault, so it can help you give more damage reduction and be bulkier in the player phase and also in the enemy phase. Arcane Darkbow doesn't really have any kind of defensive effect like that. It does have the debuff neutralization, which is honestly not the best thing to have in a metagame where Legendary Male Robin is easily one of the best support units in the game, and it is going to be having anti-synergy with his support and also any kind of unity skill. So you cannot really run attack speed unity with an Arcane Darkbow user because it is just not going to be working. I kind of wish that this was some other effect, like maybe half tempo effect, so that you could trigger your specials a lot easily, but still nonetheless, this is going to be helping you be completely immune to the debuffs and you wouldn't really have to worry about them. So as we can see, Arcane Nastrond is suited for the slower units and more for the mixed phase units, and all of the armor units, be it fast or slow, they want to have Arcane Nastrond because of its damage reduction. And Arcane Darkbow is going to be strictly for the fast units for a player phase build. It doesn't really have anything defensive that you can get, so you completely have to speed stack and make sure that you can double the enemy and make use of the dive bomb effect that the weapon provides you with. So let us take a look at the best infantry archers that can make use of Arcane Darkbow. At the top, we're going to be having one of the more recent demoed units in Dorothy, who has an absolutely insane offensive stat spread with 51 attack and 52 speed at max investment with speed super boon. So she takes the cake for pretty much the best infantry archer for this Arcane Darkbow. She doesn't really want to take any kind of hits as she doesn't have too much bulk, so this is the perfect weapon. Both of the Shinons are going to be here as they have pretty similar stat spread. Nami can also run this weapon because of her stat spread, and it does have -1 special cooldown and the dive bomb effect, so it's perfect offensive weapon. And many times it is going to be better than the preferred weapons of many of these archers for the player phase usage. Of course, Nami does have the supported weapon, but if you want to go full player phase route, then this is the option. We do have Pirate Bridget, Louise, and even Shamir here. Even though Shamir does have a preferred weapon, it's a solo preferred weapon, which is not the greatest thing, and it does have the fire sweep effect, but overall you can still just make use of the half null follow-up and have dive bomb, and it's a lot easier to trigger with Arcane Darkbow. So Shamir can also make use of this weapon. Ete does trade off some of the speed, but she does have a pretty good attack stat. And then we have Kiragi, Summer Joshua, New Year Anna, and also Nina, who did get Resplendent version recently in Tier 1. So all of these units do have pretty good speed, over 50, so they can definitely make use of this. Finally, Ronan is also going to be there because he does have speed stat to make use of this, and starting tier 2 we do have Resplendent Innis and also Bright Cordelia. Bright Cordelia used to be a meta unit back in 2017, and she can definitely make amazing use of this weapon with her offensive stat spread. Noir is also another unit who can make use of this because of her speed. And then we have Dancer Nefni, who is a bit of a weird case because unlike many of the melee dancers, she is not a 2-action dancer because she cannot have access to Gale Force. So in the player phase, you're either going to be attacking or you're going to be dancing. You're not going to be doing both. So if you want to build up your Dancer Nefni in a more offensive player phase way, then this could be an option. And then we've got some Resplendent Archers in George and Takumi in tier 2. Norn did get a decent weapon refined, but if you want to go the player phase route, then this is going to be obviously a better option. And if you want to go the defensive route, then her weapon refine is going to be the option. Fallen Takumi and Clarice are also going to be ending up in tier 2. And then we have got a bit of a drop off of attack and a bit of speed in the tier 3 archers with Rebecca and Client, and also many of these fast archers in Setsuna and Gaius, and also Niles, who doesn't really have very high attack, but obviously he can make use of that resistance as you'll see later on in the video. And in tier 4 we have borderline units who can make use of this if you completely speed stack, but keep in mind that speed is going to be going up in the game as time progresses, so this might not be the best investment, and that's why these land in tier 4. So if you're a big fan, you can obviously spoil your favorites, but still they're not going to be the best users of this kind of weapon. And many of these lower archers like George, Faye, Gordon, and Midori are going to be liking Arcane Nastrond a lot more, and Midori is going to be due for a weapon refine in a couple of months, and so is going to be Eleonora. So Eleonora already has a conditional fire sweep weapon, so she might get something really good. So you could wait it out if you're a free-to-play player or a low spender, and you could just give Arcane Darkbow to some other unit who has already gotten a weapon refine or is never going to be getting a refine in case of many seasonal units. And there are many archers who already have pretty good preferred weapon already, like young Rebecca. Tanya recently got an amazing weapon refine, and so did Egren. We have Legendary Alm, of course, and we also have units who have preferred skills like Legendary Lucina, for example. So you cannot really run a preferred skill like Lucina's Future Vision 2 with an Arcane Bow. So that's why you should be keeping the preferred skill on these units, and Jamke already got Arcane Darkbow when he got his weapon refine. When you're going to be inheriting Arcane Darkbow from Alcryst, you can actually get Deadeye, Flashing Sparrow, and Defense Rest Smoke 3 at the same time. So that can be really optimal for getting all of these premium skills, and then remains the Slot B skill, which you can easily get from Divine Codes, and a Speed Defense Tempo from Young Mia in the Divine Codes is the perfect Slot B skill that you can run, because it is going to be helping you not get stopped by any kind of guard effect, and you can easily trigger Deadeye by using Flashing Sparrow on your double hit with the dive bomb, and that's definitely the build that you can go for if you're not going to be spending any more resources or skills after inheriting Arcane Darkbow from Alcryst. You can also run attack speed finish 4 if you're going to be wanting to have some extra true damage. Obviously healing doesn't really matter too much, as this is mainly a player phase weapon, and ideally you shouldn't be taking any kind of hits, so it can work out, and you can just run Time Pulse 3 or Time Pulse 4 so that Deadeye becomes a 1 cooldown special that you can trigger on your double. You can also run Speed Defense Tempo with Attack Speed Oath 4 for running a 2 cooldown special like Ruptured Sky, Moonbow, or Glimmer, and you can run Attack Speed Ideal 4 as it's a pretty good, semi-budget skill, I would say, from Divine Codes that you can run as you're going to be at full HP with this kind of dive bomb weapon, so it could be run in the slot A if you don't want to run Flashing Sparrow. Loud Speed Defense 4 is also going to be an option, and it is definitely pretty good when this weapon is all about speed and doubling the opponent, so it can be helpful on some of the older units or not the fastest, and if you want to outspeed a lot of the newer units who stack a lot of visible status, then it could be a way of doing things, and you can just run Deadeye with Flashing Sparrow and run Attack Speed Oath 4 to stack up even more speed. Attack Speed Hexblade with Physical Null Follow-Up can actually give you some pretty nice nuking potential, because Hexblade does give you the adaptive damage, and Physical Null Follow-Up does shred the damage reduction skills by half. So it can be helpful if you face opponents with the Scout skill or the Guard effect where they're not going to be letting you trigger your Deadeye. So in that case, Physical Null Follow-Ups, damage reduction shredding can be really helpful, and you can just run this with a 2 cooldown special like Ruptured Sky or Moonbow, and just run Attack Speed Oath 4 for stacking up even more speed. And if you're an archer who doesn't really have the highest attack stat, then Deadeye is not going to be scaling that well, and it's not going to be giving you too much damage output. So in that case, you can definitely run Luna or some other special from your defensive stats like Iceberg or Bonfire with Special Spiral 4 to pierce through the damage reduction and also get some true damage along with attack speed finish 4. So for example, Niles is one of those units who doesn't have very high attack, but he still has the resistance that he can make use of. Finally, you can run a bit of a weird build which might not have the best synergy because there is an HP threshold in Arcane Darkbow and you are wanting to run a self-recall skill like Fury Sacred Seal. So basically you can use Fury with Escape Route 4 so that you can enable Canto 1, and then you can also use the Pathfinder status from Defense Rest Smoke 3. So it is going to be an option that you can run, and you can trigger Deadeye using Flashing Sparrow. Obviously not the best build, but still a pretty fun option with Escape Route 4 if that's something you like. Bow Cavaliers love Arcane Darkbow as a weapon because they don't really have access to half null follow-up that easily, and they're all about being offensive with their movement. So in tier 1 I would have Ascended Legion. Even though she does have a decent enough preferred weapon, I think that it has aged a bit and it's a lot easier to get the half null follow-up with Arcane Darkbow. Obviously you can still use her weapon for getting more stats and being overall a bit more bulky, but this is still a pretty nice side grade option for the player phase for Ascended Legion, and she does have pretty good offensive stat spread, so you can definitely try and run this weapon on her. And Wolf seriously just loves this weapon because it's a complete upgrade from his preferred weapon, which lacks minus on special cooldown, already has Dive Bomb, and he missed the half null follow up. So running this weapon is a complete upgrade and it's a must do thing for a Wolf user. We also have Leonie being top tier in tier 1, and she is the Grail unit, but still she has got pretty good offensive stat spread, even though she has got a bit less attack than Wolf and Ascended Legion. In tier 2 we have got some other Cavaliers who are not really as fast but still would like to have Arcane Darkbow in Sedgar, Lin, and also Sue. Sue did get a decent weapon refine, but again this is going to be a more of like an offensive option that you can try and have. So it could be run on Sue as well with her speed stat. And then in tier 3 we do have Bow Cavaliers who are even slower, and some of them don't really have the highest attack like Rolf and Louise. Someone like Python though can make use of Arcane Nastrond as well because of his physical bulk, so he can just as easily make use of that Arcane Bow. But if you want to have a player phase build, then this is going to be the weapon. Spring Henry and Valentine Roy are obviously pretty slow, so they are going to be liking Arcane Nastrond a lot more. And there are many Bow Cavaliers who already have a good preferred weapon or good enough niche with their, weapon that they don't really need to run Arcane Darkbow. And Wrath and Bernie are going to be due for weapon refine in a few months. And Bernie is probably getting a weapon refine similar to Arcane Darkbow anyways because she already has an effect similar to that right now. So they're probably going to be improving its condition and making it a lot better. So she probably wouldn't need Arcane Darkbow in my opinion. And her weapon refine is already going to be doing that job if you can wait it out. And I'm also scared about Wrath because they sometimes give underwhelming weapon refines to demote units like Ross for example. So that's why if Wrath's weapon refine does not end up being good, then I'll probably give my own Wrath Arcane Darkbow as well. So you can wait for the weapon refine as he's also in line. Bow Cavaliers unfortunately don't have too many inheritance options and they cannot even get Flashing Sparrow. So that's also a bit of a disappointment, but you can definitely get Defense Rest Smoke 3 at the same time while getting Arcane Darkbow. And while you can get Deadeye, it's not going to be the easiest thing to trigger with this kind of Dive Bomb effect because you're not going to be able to run Time Pulse or anything like that to really speed up the acceleration of Deadeye and trigger that on your double hit. Unless you give Special Charges status from someone like Na for example or Ledgering Hinoka, then it could be an option that you can run for sure. So if you can outsource that, then Deadeye is definitely going to be the special. Otherwise, you can run a 2 cooldown special like Moonbow or Ruptured Sky. So for the slotty skill, you can run Sparrow 3 as a budget option because this is a player phase weapon, but attack speed catch can also be run for getting even more offenses. And then you can run a Fortray skill in the slot B as there are not too many options. And like I said, Defense Rest Smoke 3 is a pretty good option to get. You can also run Loudspeed Defense 4 in the slot B, but you're going to be missing out on the Canto. And if you want to get the fixed Canto 1, then Escape Route 4 is going to be the option, and you can run this with Attack Speed Push 4. But just like I mentioned with the Shamir build before, it's a bit of a gimmicky build because there is the HP threshold of Arcane Darkbow, but still it is going to be an option if you really enjoy Escape Route 4 as a fun skill. There are many Bow Fliers who would love to have Arcane Darkbow as an offensive option. Bridal Shana and Spring Inigo have pretty similar stat spreads which can enable them to use Arcane Darkbow really well. And just like Summer Leonie, Summer Elincia is also going to be chilling here in tier 1 as a Grail unit because of her speed that she has got, and she can definitely make use of this weapon. In tier 2, we do have some of the older bow flyers that you can give this weapon to, like Summer Takumi and then Neo Fiarm. And then we also have Kinshi Hinoka, who did get a weapon refine, and it's a decent weapon refine with armor effectiveness, but she's really not going to be killing any kind of far safe tanks or armor units of the modern times, so you can definitely try and run Arcane Darkbow as a more of a player phase option. And then we've got Summer Loki, who does have a bit less speed and attack than all of the other bow flyers. And when it comes to the slow bow flyers, we do have Ninja Heath and also Dancer Quan, who are just going to be liking Arcane Nastrond because they're very, very slow. And there are also many of the bow flyers who already have really amazing weapons. And no, you cannot really run Arcane Darkbow on Rearmed Tana and still make use of her exclusive slot B skill. That's not how it works. So she's also going to be in that category. Just like bow Cavaliers, bow flyers also do not have too many options, but at the very least, they can provide some insane support with guidance 4 or soaring guidance to their allies. So that is always going to be an option in the slot C. And like I said before, in the bow Cavalier section, you will need to outsource some kind of special charges status if you want to trigger Deadeye on your double attack. So Legendary Hinoka does come to mind as a pretty amazing flying unit who can also give the charge status to these flyers. So you can definitely run her and run Deadeye with that. But if not, then you can just run A2 cooldown special like Moonbow or Ruptured Sky. And you can just run attack speed catch 4 and speed defense fortress and stack up even more debuffs by running speed defense rain or speed defense hold. And again, the escape route build is going to be there as always, as it is going to be an option for Canto 1 if you really enjoy that skill. This is going to be my full Arcane Darkbow tier list. Overall, this is a pretty nice player phase weapon, and it is going to be useful if you're trying to build up a unit that way. And there are definitely a lot of skills that you can run, especially on the infantry units, which can make them really solid offensive threats. I've got no armor units here because ultimately they're going to be functioning as a far safe tank, and even if you somehow want to use them as a player phase unit, they still don't have access to, assault troop. And even if you run them with like Alir and give them the charge status, it is still not going to be enough because we don't really have enough fighter skills and enough armor skills for like player phase armors. So player phase armors are pretty rare to like Summer Edelgard, Legendary Edelgard, and definitely none of these, bow archers are going to be fit for player phase. That's why I don't really include them. You should just be running Arcane Nastrond for the 30% damage reduction, and that's how they're going to be performing. So hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure to share this with your friends if they're trying to give Arcane Darkbow to one of their favorites. And if you did enjoy, then make sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps out tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks down below or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more Fae videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Arcane Darkbow on an armor unit. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.